Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. Always so excited to be here with you today. Hello to everyone in the chat. Always a joy to see each and every one of you. So today, I'm kind of excited about this topic. Love UFO stuff, as we all do. And who better to talk about it than with Preston Dennett? So yay, super excited about that. We've had him, of course, on the show several times, and always an honor. So as you just heard, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. If you're on YouTube, which I'm sure you are, please be sure and subscribe to my channel. That would mean the world to me if you did. We love the support from you guys. And all it takes is a click. So please be sure to do that. And of course, much thanks to United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is available on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And of course, if you're on any social media platform, you can feel free to join us in a chat room to connect with our wonderful guest today. So a little intro so you can kind of get a taste for what we're going to be talking about. We're going to step into a subject that refuses to sit quietly in the corners of culture, especially nowadays. There's so much about disclosure going on, so this is like the perfect topic. For decades, people with no prior interest in UFOs, teachers, pilots, police officers, families, they've all reported, a lot of them have reported encounters that share striking similarities. Humanoid beings described in chilling detail, unexplained periods of missing time, and in some cases, physical evidence left behind. Marks on the ground, electromagnetic interference, and medical after effects, which is really wild, right? There are multiple witnesses describing the same impossible crafts performing maneuvers no known technology can replicate. In his book, Not From Here, Selected UFO Articles, Volume 5, veteran researcher Preston Dennett compiles some of the most compelling cases and reports that go beyond blurry lights in the sky and into close range encounters that challenge our assumptions about reality itself. This isn't just a conversation about belief. It's a conversation about patterns, testimony, data that refuses to disappear. Whether these event points to advanced technology, unknown natural phenomena, or something far stranger, the witnesses involved insist on one thing. Whatever they've encountered was not from here. So let's dig in and examine this book and a lot of the evidence with Preston Dennett.
Hi, Carol Ann. Always nice to see you.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you so much. So excited to talk to you. Hello, Heidi, my dear star sister, and Patsy. Hey, good to see you guys. Hello to everybody in the chat. There's so many people because of Preston and his fan base, so I can't say hi to everyone, but hello. We'll let Preston do the helloing too.
Hello to everyone.
Yes, it's easier that way.
I love all of you.
Yes, much love. So this book was kind of pretty amazing, like all of your other books. And of course, this is volume 5, right? From in the series.
Absolutely, yeah.
How does it differ?
Well, each has 10 chapters, and they really focus on sort of weird and unusual patterns in UFO research. And honestly, I thought that volume 5 was going to be the last one, but I'm working on volume 6 because I keep finding these amazing patterns. How this one really differs is that the previous 4 books were pretty much completely drawn from articles I had published in various magazines, which
Yeah.
you really can't find anymore. UFO Universe, it's defunct, but Fate Magazine, UFO Encounters, I mean, there's all kinds of magazines, which most went defunct in the digital age. But these are these are very hard to find. And one day I'm like, all my research, half of it, half of the things I've written about were not available. So that was kind of the idea for this whole series. But volume 5, only I think 1 or 2 of these were previously published. So it's pretty much all new information in terms of, not being published before, I should say. But I draw on a wide variety of sources, connecting with, the other researchers, certainly.
Yeah.
But the UFO News Clipping Service, God bless Lucius Farish for starting that, because that adds a huge resource tool.
Oh, I'll bet.
But yeah, all kinds of books. You can see I've got about 1 million books behind me. All the UFO reporting centers, they've been very helpful. So I cast a wide net. And it's funny because I'll be reading along and suddenly I'm like, well, this is a really unusual case. And then I find another. And then when I find a third, that's when my alarm bells goes off and I'm like, let's dive deep on this. So I've really covered a lot of very unusual topics in this whole series. And can I just name a few of them from
Of course.
from the previous volumes? Like in volume 1 had phone call from an alien. There's been a bunch of cases. Or UFOs over graveyards, 20, 30 cases. The alien clown connection, UFOs that hover over mines, that's volume 1. Volume 2 would be alien gifts, people who've gotten actual ET artifacts, or the UFO breathing pool, when people are submerged under this liquid while on board a UFO and made to breathe it. The smell of UFOs. What do UFOs smell like? What do ETs smell like? Book 3, let's see, Ouija board UFO contacts, UFOs over prison, Bigfoot UFO encounters, people who've received instructions or information on how UFOs operate. Book 4 would be cases where people's car was lifted up off the road and deposited further on down the road. Very strange.
That is strange.
UFOs over airports. That's a thing. They're landing. They're hovering. Humanoids are being seen. The ET fertilizer connection. Didn't know that was a thing. People who've crashed into UFOs. So those are some people who had physical altercations with ETs. And then we get to book 5, which has 10 different topics like these. I covered one chapter about people who see enormous numbers of UFOs. Not 10, not 20, not 30. We're talking over 100. Not a whole lot of cases, but there's some. Another chapter is about some firsthand CE5 cases I personally investigated. Another that I thought was really important, because I was on Facebook, Carolyn, and somebody really, pissed me off. When they said, if UFOs are real, how come no astronomers have seen UFOs? My head exploded. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And so I put a chapter in there of all the really prominent astronomers. And I can tell you there's like hundreds of them. So I just put in the top 20 who've seen
and
UFOs.
Amateur astronomers too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another pattern I found, because, I love sitcoms, Friends and, so forth. Friends never covered the UFO topic, but almost every other sitcom did. Some barely touched upon it. Big Bang barely mentioned it. But I Love Lucy did. Married with Children, Leave It to Beaver. So I found about 20, 30, and I didn't get all of them. I missed some major ones. Bob Newhart, I didn't know. Night Court, missed that one. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of sitcoms that have tackled this subject, and how they do it and how they present this is in some ways fascinating and in other ways chilling. Honestly, it's like, ooh.
Yeah.
The twin connection, twins are a thing when it comes to UFOs. That
Yeah.
has never really been studied. What is going on here? A lot of twins in the contactee population. So, these are some of the topics. Alien
Yeah.
names, because ETs have names too, it turns out, just like us. Again, you
Wow.
don't hear a lot about that. The biggest chapter is warnings, because ETs are constantly warning people, providing information about how we're on the wrong path. So I could have done a book on that, and I've
Yeah.
always meant to, but each time I try to tackle it, I get so overwhelmed because everyone gets that message. I
Yeah.
could write a 500-page book. If I have the time, I will. But yeah, people who've been taken on board with their dogs. And my favorite chapter is alien books. People who are taken on board and shown a book. Dolly
I've
had that.
heard of that.
Yeah. A number of people have had that. So those are the
I think
topics.
Dolly mentioned that when we were talking to her, right? That she had a book, but she couldn't take it off the ship. Or am I confusing her with somebody else?
No,
I could have sworn.
she sure did. And it's
Yeah, I thought so.
my favorite case of all of them. It's funny, whenever I start discovering these patterns, I turn to Dolly and I kind of like casually ask her, don't suppose you know anything about people who've levitated, or no, wait, about people who've shrunk down as a result of a UFO encounter? Have you ever dealt with anything like that? And of course, she had this amazing experience where she saw someone get shrunk down. That's a chapter in one of the books. They will
Wow.
shrink people down. It's crazy. Some of the stuff that you just don't hear about because it's so bizarre. Most researchers won't touch them.
What language are the books written in? Are there any details on that?
Well, generally, it's a kind of a trick question. They're not so much words. Often, it's more pictures and concepts and telepathic and downloading. But it's in your native language, generally speaking.
That makes sense.
Yeah, which would make sense. They're not quite books as we would think of them. They're in book form. It's really interesting, Caroline, because almost all the cases, not all, but the vast majority of them describe it the same way, with these books having these kind of, Betty Andreasson, for example, described this almost emerald blue cover with glowing white pages, which is what Betty Hill described.
Right.
Whitley Strieber said his was covered with jewels and stuff. Dolly's like, mine looked like sapphire, emerald. So these are the kinds of descriptions people give. The pages are not paper; they're glowing white. Oh, Dolly, mine speaks Swedish.
English and Anunnaki. And great.
Very cool.
Very cool.
It was interesting because, I was talking about this in depth with Dolly because we included a whole section of this on the book Symmetry. And she's like, well, these books, we all have one. And this is essentially linked to the Akashic Library.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of having a lot of discussions with a lot of my guests that are well versed in the Akashic records. And yeah, there's definitely a correlation. We had a question here. I didn't want to pass it by because it kind of makes sense right now. Predator's asking, love the name, by the way. Hi, Preston. After so long on this topic, what do you think is a UFO phenomenon?
Well, I think there's a lot of conflating going on because what we're dealing with is a lot of different things. And there's this whole movement in the field to conflate various phenomena, such as near-death experiences and Bigfoot and ghosts, angels, demons, little people into one thing, an intelligence which wears different masks.
Right.
I do not subscribe to that theory. I think it's highly speculative and frankly inaccurate. I think we are dealing with people. I think that's the best way of putting it. And I can tell you that researchers who really focus on cases of direct contact or onboard experiences really have come to that conclusion, most of them.
Yeah.
This other intelligence theory is sort of the second most popular, but I'm very wary of it. Barbara Lamb, Yvonne Smith, certainly the big three, Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, and John Mack, all felt we were dealing with, people, ETs, people like us from other planets.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the vast majority of contactees also feel that way. And I've interviewed a lot of them. Not all. There's one guy who insists, no, I think it's a jinn type spirit. I do think those things exist. I
Yeah.
really do. And I think in some cases they might even, to some extent, mimic an ET, but no. Demons, I've done a lot of research into demonic spirits. It's not that. That's completely different. It's a near-death experience is exactly what it appears to be. The near-death literature is very extensive. And ETs rarely, it's statistically insignificant, pop up. Same with Bigfoot. Yeah, some do intersect. Bigfoot cases and UFO cases. But statistically insignificant. It's 1%, if that. So, and that's kind of what I like to explore, actually, some of these intersections.
Yeah, we do that for sure. And I agree with Poetic here, who says, Preston, I feel that ETs are only one of hundreds of different universal races. And I think that's true too. I think there are so many different races. Why not? Right? Look how vast the universe is.
Yeah, different types of entities, I would say.
Absolutely.
I think in terms of people populated throughout the universe, we're dealing with a whole population that's very much sharing the same ancestry. So when you talk about grays and mantids and tall whites and such, we're all family. But then you have Bigfoot, that's a little different. Still has DNA though. I'm very curious about the reports of little people in all different cultures stretching back thousands of years, because these are not quite the ETs. I mean, they are and they aren't, but they have the ability to travel interdimensionally. They're not really flying craft around, but they wear clothes. Now, I don't know where these little elf factories are that they're sewing up their clothes and building their little houses, but they're absolutely reported wearing belts and hats and so forth.
I think about that stuff too. Like, where do they get their clothes from? Like a lot of these races of people. Well, I guess they have people making them just like we do, right?
Yeah, I'm guessing, and I don't know here because I'm not an elf expert by any means, but you kind of have to be if you're researching this topic. If you don't tackle the topic of little people, elves, kobolds, dwarves, fairies, I think
I believe they're real.
100%.
Yeah.
I did a whole YouTube episode about it, and I was shocked to get a bunch of people responding with modern day accounts. I always thought, oh no, this is the 1800s. No, it's still happening.
They are. I've heard of people that I've spoken to that set up little fairy gardens for them and put out food and offerings, and they come and take them. I believe that.
Yeah, there's I think an elf museum in Iceland or something. They take it very seriously in Europe because they've had a lot of encounters. It's so fascinating. I think they're probably living in a dimension above ours slightly, but can absolutely appear to people, and physically they can manipulate the environment. I don't know what I would call those, crypto-terrestrials, interdimensional beings. So there's a lot we're dealing with. Certainly spirits, ghosts, nature spirits even, all kinds of stuff that I'm guessing we don't even know about because we don't have the ability to perceive it, or they haven't come around. But yeah, I think in terms of the UFO phenomenon, when there's a craft in the sky and it's got windows and it's leaving landing traces and it's appearing on radar and it's causing magnetic anomalies and it's pulling people on board and healing them. Those are people. Those are people very much like us.
Yeah. Dunsel wants to know if you're ever going to write a book about little people encounters. You have that in your radar?
I do, but I've got about 50 books, and I have a funnel, so only one book can come out at a time.
Right.
And so it's in there. And if I can get enough firsthand unpublished cases, I would love to do that, because I don't really want to rehash. There's so many books being published that are just complete rehashes of things that are already out there.
That's a good
If
point.
I could do, finding really interesting patterns to that sort of thing, I would absolutely do a rehash type book, because that's kind of what the Not From Here volumes are. But I have to say a lot of them do include my own cases and very obscure cases. But yeah, I would love to do a little people book.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
So interesting. Yeah.
Before we get into your book, I have to ask you this question, because it's such a hot topic. And I mean, the president's talking about it. It's disclosure, and I have to ask your updated opinion. I know we've chatted about that before, but now Trump has made a statement that he is directing his agencies to really start releasing and put them to work, saying, you got to get this information out there. And then you've got all these additional congressional hearings. And then Paulina Luna, whatever her name is, she's got some name. She's been coming out, making these like definitive statements that there are biologics and, things are going to get disclosed. So what say you? Has anything changed from the last time we talked about it?
I mean, that was unprecedented, what Trump did. No president has ever done that. So that's encouraging in a way. But I have to tell you, it was a simple statement. He ordered a release or an investigation, rather.
Yeah.
So will we get anything? I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
And I heard someone talking the other day, and he said something that I've said before, and many researchers have said, but it's worth repeating. Why would we look to somebody who's been lying about this subject forever to tell us the truth?
Yeah.
Why would we look? Why would we even care? What would be the use of it? So
yes,
I don't know that we should even pay too much attention to what's going on there, because frankly, I think that they are steering a narrative, telling lies still, very fear-based. It's tightly controlled. It would take an unbelievable revolution, the collapse of a country, to get the truth out. We're not seeing it. No, I'm not holding my breath. Maybe I'm jaded. Maybe we will see something.
I agree. I am too. I'm not only jaded, but I'm disgusted. And I kind of agree with this statement from Maggie, like Dolly and Preston have already been validated. Why do we need the government? We need the government to do it because they owe it to us to be honest and truthful. They need to come out and stop disavowing pilots and people in the military and police officers that have already, validated this statement as well. People in high authority. So we owe it. They owe it to us to be honest. But like you said, Preston, the odds of that happening are slim to none. So
yeah, well, there's a term called catastrophic disclosure.
Yeah.
And I had to smile when Dolly kind of turned that on its end and said, I'm all for it. Let's have disclosure. Let's chips fall where they may, heads roll. I don't care. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
But Dolly said something that, I've said before, and I've heard other people say it. It's catastrophic to cover up the truth. That's right. Catastrophe. That has caused untold damage to all humanity. It's absolutely stopped the progress of this subject. So catastrophic disclosure. That, I snort at that. How dare you?
It's like an oxymoron in a sense. But I still think that the government does owe it to its people. But like we said, the odds of it happening are slim to none. But we could hope that they would find a modicum of honesty in their agendas. I don't know.
I feel like, sooner or later it's got to happen. There's a saying by Buddha, there's 3 things you can't hide: the sun, the moon, and the truth.
Yeah.
And I like that.
It's true. The truth always floats to the top. I say that
Yeah.
absolutely sure. So before we dig into some of the cases in your book, because they were amazing, like the Arizona copper mine UFOs, that thing, right? Oh, Cooper. Is it Cooper or Copper?
Copper.
You had a case where copper mining, right? So before we dig into like individual cases, you said you wanted to talk about I think Bigfoot before and the connection, or yeah,
Yeah,
go right ahead.
it's very interesting. I had my own case that sort of led me into the Bigfoot because I started to suspect UFOs, Bigfoot were real, but I knew that would be opening a can of worms. I wasn't ready for it. But I've always been very honest in terms of following the evidence. I will not cover up or ignore, eyewitness testimony,
Yeah.
no matter how high strangeness it is. And I finally got my Bigfoot UFO case when a gentleman by the name of Robert Murphy, a radiologist, a good witness, described having a UFO land in his backyard, and the next day a Bigfoot showed up. And he
Wow.
felt 100% these were connected. And I started getting a few other cases. And so I buckled down, started investigating Bigfoot and writing about it. Ended up writing a whole book on Bigfoot. And finally, I'm like, okay, let's look at these cases where they show up at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there are probably about 50 or 100 of them
Wow, that's
that
a
are
lot.
well known. Yeah, it is a lot. In comparison to the million documented UFO cases, well, you would never find
Yeah.
them if you weren't looking for them.
Right.
But
But think of the people that don't make the correlation too. That cases aren't reported that we don't know about.
Yeah, who would you tell? Are you going to tell somebody that you saw Bigfoot coming out of a UFO?
They'd lock you up in the loony bin.
100%. So we're
Yeah,
probably not hearing a good portion of them.
exactly.
But these cases do come from all over the world. The researcher, gosh, his name in Pennsylvania, Stan Gordon.
Oh, I spoke to him. I had him on my show.
Ah, very cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
very
absolutely. I think he's a tremendous researcher. He's got a bunch of cases of this kind. He was one of the first to
Has he been on your show at all?
No, I've reached out to him. He said he couldn't do video. Did he do video?
He just did audio, but it worked out great.
Yeah, well, we're trying to figure out how to do that. So yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, it worked out good. I did it right in StreamYard and it worked out really well.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I like his research. He's
Yes.
very thorough. He's been in this field a long time. He's objective.
He still has a hotline number too.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And he uncovered some of these Bigfoot UFO cases. And of course, the prevailing opinion, I think, among people who really just kind of heard about them is that maybe Bigfoot's an ET. And I kind of jumped on that bandwagon. But looking at these cases, because there are some where people will see a UFO and it takes off, and then a Bigfoot comes running out of the forest.
Yeah.
So that's weird. Or Bigfoot runs into a UFO lands and a Bigfoot runs to it. There's a couple of cases, Caroline, where people have seen Bigfoot coming out of a UFO or walking in direct.
Actually coming out of a UFO. Oh, because I was thinking maybe the UFO opened up a portal and the Bigfoot took advantage of it and entered our timeline. I don't know. That was just the way I kind of reasoned it out, but I didn't know they come right out of a UFO. Wow.
In a few scattered cases, there's another case in Colorado I saw where a person walked up to a landed UFO and there were grays and there was a Bigfoot there and it was walking around like it was, one of them.
Yeah.
So, there's a number of these kinds of cases. Now, if you research Bigfoot, you'll see these accounts go back hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And there's variations. There's a name for them in every county or country or state. Florida, they call it the skunk ape. Sasquatch up in Canada, we call it Bigfoot. The Almas in China. I mean, you can go all through all the countries and see that these are.
He protects them.
Yeah, I think they're a native life form on this planet who are sentient and very psychically advanced, because people have reports of them disappearing. You're not going to find a body because they're partly interdimensional. I think they have the ability to traverse dimensions in a way that only very, very advanced, quote, enlightened masters here on Earth can do, turning invisible and so forth. But I think they're flesh and blood creatures. We know this because they do make footprints. They leave, there's all kinds of hair samples, blood samples, samples of their waist. I mean, you name it. There was one called Old Cripplefoot. They knew him because he had a very distinctive tracks. And they followed his tracks for miles. The evidence for Bigfoot is overwhelming.
It is. Absolutely.
Here's my conclusion when it comes to this connection. I think, and gosh, I'm sorry to all skeptics out there because you're going to think I am out of my mind, but I think this is what's going on. I think Bigfoot are contactees, just like a person would be. So when you see Bigfoot and UFO phenomena intersecting, it's because Bigfoot is contacting UFOs. ETs are contacting Bigfoot. And yeah, like Dolly says, there's some reporting on that they're the protectors, that they're very much have been on this planet for a very long time.
That would kind of make sense, Preston. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And it absolutely fits in with the fact that ETs show an interest in all life forms on this planet.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they're sentient, it would absolutely make a whole lot of sense. And I think they are sentient. It's so interesting, Caroline, because I researched Bigfoot. It's shocking. Some of these cases are not necessarily Bigfoot, but more like wild men, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal. Our planet is not as well explored as you might think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There are places where apparently these guys live out in the Brazilian rainforest or the Amazon forest or what have you.
There are sightings of pterodactyl flying through the skies. So I mean, why not? Like maybe there are some living, you know, in volcanoes or deep mountains underground. Who knows? I don't doubt that either.
I know. I've heard about the pterodactyls. I'm kind of on the fence about that, but because that's just. I mean, that's.
I know it seems crazy.
To swallow. But I know about the reports. I do wonder about it. And I know that people have been taken on board and seen what amounts to extinct creatures, dinosaur-like creatures and stuff. So maybe some are being let go into our environment. I'll have to ask Dolly about that because she would probably know. But it's certainly interesting. You know, like the chupacabra. That was a new manifestation. That we don't have historical reports of that.
Right.
So, and there's not a very strong UFO connection to that either. I'm wondering if that's a government experiment.
And it's so interesting because Michelle and I have talked a lot about cryptids and monsters and things like that. They creep me out in the worst way cryptids do. I'm not a fan of them because I've seen some video of them. What are those white ones called that crawl on all fours?
Night crawlers?
Yeah, kind of like the night crawl. That's like the last thing I'd ever want to see. But you know, it's a possibility that these things do live here underground, or maybe they're coming interdimensionally. I don't know. I don't doubt any of it. I don't.
Yeah. A rake says JBW. Yeah.
Those are them. Those are nasty.
I don't know. You know, I think the reptilians are probably living on this planet underground. And
I don't doubt any of it. I don't.
You know, when I found out UFOs were real, that kind of broke my whole belief system. So I don't want to doubt things and then find out again I was wrong.
Exactly. Like it's good to keep an open perspective about it. You know, and I look at it like this too, especially with the craft and the UFOs. If there are millions of reports out there, they all can't be lying.
Exactly. And this is what I tell people.
Yeah.
People say, you know, what's the best evidence for UFO healings? I got 20 cases that I think would convince any reasonable skeptic and certainly pass a court of law. But the fact is there are 300 that I've been able to document. And it's closer now to 500 It's the huge number of cases that
Yeah.
present the best incontrovertible evidence that something very profound is happening here.
Yeah, I read your
People,
book on that. It was excellent.
I mean, there's no denying it. I
Yeah.
dare you to read that book. Even you can go to Amazon and read just the preview,
Yeah.
and you get the entire introduction there. You cannot deny it. Because it's not just me saying this, it's pretty much every major researcher out there across the
Yeah.
planet. So good luck trying to say that ETs aren't healing people, and that's not one of their major missions. Because it is, and it's demonstrably true.
What about the flip side of that coin where, people make the mistake of touching craft and then they get radiation sickness and stuff like that? Do you get a lot of those reports or read them where people are getting burns and sickness from
Not a lot.
interaction?
It's interesting because Thomas Bullard was the first to do a statistical study of onboard experiences. He cataloged some 300 of them. Great work. And figured out the whole pattern that takes place when people are taken on board. And he talked about healings and he talked about injuries. He said it was really interesting because pretty much all the healings appear to be intentional and all the injuries not.
Or accidental? Yeah.
Yes. And you can see other reporting on this. And look at it this way. What kind of person doesn't think first when they run up to, a fire or a gorilla on the rampage or something, I'd use that as a
I love
example,
dogs, but I would never randomly run up to one and start petting it first. I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the best analogy. Maybe a fire would be the best analogy.
A fire, yeah.
Because that's where you do see a number of injuries, is people coming up. I would point to the Stephen McCallick case at Falcon Lake, which is very well authenticated, and the one that a bunch of people bring up, like, look, they're hostile. I'm like, hold on a second. He ran up to this craft. It was really hot.
Yeah.
And it took off, I think probably to get away from him because he was going to get burned. He did get burned. His coat caught on fire. He had a grid mark on his chest.
Didn't he pass away? I think he passed away eventually, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but he was very sick from this.
Right.
His blood count was very
got messed
low.
Up.
And doctors, he had radiation poisoning is what it amounted to.
Yes.
And they could not figure it out. It's like, what happened? Well, we know what happened. He got too close to a landed UFO.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I had a section on that. MUFON has their investigative handbook rather. And there's a section on physiological effects, and it's titled Medical Injuries from a UFO. Not a single mention of healings. This is what bothers me. There's bias here.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. Heidi said she had a phenomenon that she believed was a healing experience with 3 beings. One was as tall, as the ceiling. Geez, Heidi, we're going to have to talk about that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. People talk about that. Grays can get really tall. We hear 3'4", 5, 6 foot. They can get 7, 8, 9 foot. They can get taller than that. And the mantids certainly can get that tall.
Yeah, the mantids I heard were tall. Yeah.
I've got 2 cases of mantids that are 15 feet tall that I've personally researched.
What?
Yes. I'll tell you one real brief. Fallon, Illinois, a teacher, daycare worker. I think this was 2006, if I'm correct. Goes out jogging at 3 a.m. in the morning. She loves to jog early in the morning. God bless her. I could never get up that early. But she does it and goes with her dog. And she's jogging down this street near her house, comes upon a T intersection at Kyle Avenue. And there's a street light there. I looked it up. It's all there. Everything she said was there. A water tower, a high school, a cornfield. And sees what she thought looked like a person on stilts walking down the middle of the road. It's a busy road at daytime, but at 3 a.m. nobody's there. Her dog saw it first. The dog stopped, so she stopped, and she's thinking it's a deer, it's a raccoon. No, it was this guy on stilts goes under the streetlights, and of course it's not a guy. It's a mantid, mottled gray brown, very stick-like. Its hands are, kind of like a begging dog, is how they describe it. It's got a huge, almost triangular shaped head with eyes the size of basketballs. These guys are big. And its head is bent down and it's scanning the ground, taking 6-foot strides, moving much faster than a normal person. And off it went. She ran after it. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I wanted to see what it was. She and her dog ran after it just in time to watch it disappear off into the cornfield. Yeah, a mantid sighting. I did further questioning with her. She is a contactee because she's like, oh no, this was a one-off. I'm like, well, let's dive deeper. When you were a kid, anything strange happened.
Remember that video that went viral of these two stick-like, it looked like they were 15 feet tall, walking through the backyard of some guy, and it looked like they were all legs. They were like, well, it was at night, and the video looked like it was like they were white. And that's what that reminds me of. Who knows? Maybe they were night walkers or some kind of cryptid thing. I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag. Some people think they were grays. I don't know. It was tripping.
I think I've seen that footage.
Oh, it was so famous.
Yeah, I'm putting it on the back burner because it hasn't really been, maybe 10 cases or something like this, which could, makes me question it.
Does it?
I question the whole UFO field, but the fact is there's a million cases. You cannot deny it. When something is repeated over and over and over and over and over and over, Bigfoot, ghosts, near-death experiences, little people, all of those are very solidly established. So something like that, I'm not going to say no, but I'm putting it on the back burner until you get better verification.
That's good. That's why you're the researcher that you are, because you check everything out.
Yeah, I think it behooves us all. It's funny, I talk about out-of-body experiences and people are like, you can't prove it. I'm not trying to prove this to you. It's up to you to do your research. I'm presenting the evidence as we know it. And I really hope that people take the initiative to really do their due diligence to check this stuff out.
Absolutely.
You can read a million books. You could read 100 books on milk. You'll never know what milk tastes like until you actually drink the milk.
That's right.
You know what I mean? A simple analogy, but honestly, out-of-body experiences, that's something you can do. You can see ghosts if you want. There's a lot of really well-known haunted places. So yeah, do your own research, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing to do. You can't just believe everything on face value either. It's always good to, and don't use just AI either, because that already, lies to us and tells us what we want to hear rather than the truth lots of times. So.
Yeah, it's quite sad, isn't it?
It is. Very sad. People, put too much face value into it. It's always best to, get the books out, like go to the library, do some good research, right?
Yeah, I was going on some of the popular UFO Facebook groups. There's some good ones out there. I like Humanoids with Albert Rosales. MUFON Global page has some good stuff on it.
Yeah.
There's some good UFO Facebook groups. Most are not good, Carolyn. I was doing a statistical study on it. Over 90% was absolute AI fake. In my humble opinion. But when you see a 8-second piece of footage, because you can get cheap AI to do an 8-second video or 30 seconds, you can kind of tell if you are at all discerning. It's getting better and better.
Absolutely. Let me share this with you. These are the Fresco night crawlers. These are the guys that I was talking about.
Yeah, Fresno, right.
Fresno. You saw these, right?
Is that?
Yeah.
What the name of those things?
What the?
Girl. I'm with Ozzy here.
Idea.
Like, what the heck?
Exactly.
It's like somebody on stilts.
It does,
It does.
but they caught the same thing in Yosemite years later, and there's 2 of them in this one.
I mean, there's multiple videos of these things. Look at these things.
Yeah, I don't know, Carol Ann. I've never
I
gotten a
know it's
first-hand
trippy.
report.
It's trippy stuff. I mean, are they ET? Are they
No,
cryptids?
I don't think so. No.
No, they're
Uh,
cryptids. I mean, that video was out before AI, so that's a
no,
legit video.
you can still fake stuff, you know.
I guess, but there's so many videos of them things, them night crawlery things. I don't know. I thought for a minute they were ET because again, different races, different types.
Well, you have to
I don't know.
eat, you know, how
Yeah.
you have to have, some way to manipulate objects. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hesitate to endorse those. I'm not going to, I'll just say it. I'm not endorsing that because I don't know about that.
Yeah. But you
It's
seem
too much
hesitant
for
to
me to
say,
swallow.
yeah. Yeah.
That's just me. As a researcher, I do fall on the skeptical side of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Weirdly, finding out UFOs were real made me more skeptical because I'd been lied to for so
Yeah.
long.
Oh, I'll bet.
And people lie.
That's a good point.
They do. It's unfortunate, but we have to be very careful. And again, there's some videos, but not like we see with the UFO videos. There's photographic evidence for UFOs is mountainous.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's the same with crop circles too. Like I am a total believer in crop circles. And
Me too.
my personal belief, I think that ET is making them as some type of communication, warnings, all of the above. I mean, or they're coming from ET that lives underneath the core of the earth or at the I don't know. I don't think that. I really think they're ET. I don't think humans are making them. They're too sophisticated for humans to be making them. I don't know. There's a lot out there that,
Yeah. Well,
I
I've
believe.
dived deep into that, crop circles. I haven't been and visiting them, not that deep. Barbara Lamb, she did a whole book on it. She went there yearly. Colin Andrews.
Yeah, they feel energy when they're there. They pick up like a source of energy when they walk into them.
Oh, they're real. It's
They
not
are
Doug and
real.
Dave.
Yeah.
Remember those two chaps, old guys in England, like Doug and Dave? It's us. We've been doing it.
It's not.
You haven't been in Australia and Canada. You weren't in Illinois and upstate New York.
Great point. I mean, it's a global phenomena. It's truly a global thing.
And Dr. Levengood was a scientist who bravely stepped forward and did scientific objective research on it and showed that the nodes were expanded and busted, and you can instantly tell a genuine crop circle from a fake one by putting them under an electron microscope. And frankly, you can tell pretty easily if you're an expert because they're woven, they're swirled.
Exactly.
It's not hard to make one.
No, but the intricacies and the messages that have been in there. And I saw that one that Herb is talking about. They show a video of these two orbs and making it. And again, way before AI video was out, just looks so legit. Preston, I don't know. I think they're from ET, but that's me. I feel it.
Today's videos, it's such a shame we have AI. I mean, it has wonderful uses. Don't get me wrong. I use it in art for my videos. Sure. I don't use it for writing, but can be helpful in research to an extent as long as you verify everything. But these videos are driving me crazy.
Me too.
That's why I love the older photographic evidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, the crop circles are so beautiful, so clearly meaningful.
I love them. When I see not that I've ever been to one, I hope someday too before I leave the planet. When I see a crop circle, and I've watched hundreds of them, there's something so magical about them, and I just feel so connected to them on an ethereal level, and I just know that there's messages, warnings, signal. There's something from ET. Yeah, I just put that up. That is so true. You know, the good thing is when you watch an AI video now, you can tell it's AI. But in a year from now, Preston, you're going to see them where you're not going to be able to distinguish.
Yeah, they did an experiment with, just the human face. Which one do you think is AI and which one do you think is not? People could not tell. And with hands, it's a little bit different. Sometimes they still come out 6 fingers or whatever.
They've gotten much better at that too now, because I've been making a point to look at the hands, and I think they kind of nailed that now. They got the hands right. They probably knew that, AI was tripping up doing that, but you're right.
Yeah, with all these deep fakes of people who, are talking, and they did one of Michio Kaku, pretty famous scientist.
Saw that.
And I'm like, oh no, because they actually did have a little disclaimer on top, like AI generated. But if you missed it,
some of them aren't coming with disclaimers, and people like famous people in the news and the media, they're trademarking their face, and you might want to think about doing that because they're again using people's likenesses to make money and make videos, and now people have resorted to trademarking their face.
Yeah. Well, it's against the law to do that. Remember Scarlett Johansson? They asked her if she would be the voice of, Siri or one of them. She said, "No, I'm not doing that." Well, they put it out and did a look-alike voice. She sued. I don't know if she won. I hope so.
Win? I don't know. I didn't follow. Yeah.
But man, oh man, AI is absolutely lied about me personally, because people contacted me and said, "Well, AI said this about you, and like you wrote this." I'm like, I've never heard of this article. I did not write that.
Can you correct that? Is there a complaint form or place you can go, Preston, to fix those errors?
If you see a AI video on Facebook that is putting out invalid information, you can complain and it will be taken down.
Oh, that's good.
Or it might be. I know people have done that successfully. So
good. That's good to hear. Yeah. So out of that book, you've got so many cases in there. The 7 windows humanoid encounter, the massive boomerang UFO seen by an entire town. Let's talk about that one. That one kind of tripped me out a little bit. What is that one all about?
Are you talking about the UFO fleets?
You bring up this large scale sighting that there's this gigantic boomerang shaped craft that was seen by people in Arizona. I forget where.
I think you're talking about the Phoenix Lights. Yeah.
No, is it? No, I don't think it was Phoenix. It was something with Morenci. I don't know the name of the town.
Oh, okay, Morenci.
Morenci, that's it.
All right.
That's it. Because I know I read it.
Got a million cases running through my head. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I covered that in one of the Not From Here volumes about UFOs that hover over our minds. Now, Arizona, you might not know it, is the leading copper producer in the United States.
Wow.
So they've got an enormous number of copper mines. And UFOs absolutely are drawn to mines for whatever reason.
That's so interesting.
There was a case in Karnes City, Texas, where they hovered over a uranium mine that hadn't been fully dug up. By the time they got to the uranium, it was spent. Apparently, ET did not want us to have that uranium.
So they took the uranium out of the mine?
It was deactivated.
Wow.
The miners were crying when this UFO showed up. But the Morenci case is so interesting because this was an area where UFOs had been seen repeatedly over this copper smelting plant. And on one day, or I think it was daytime actually, this very unusual looking craft comes right up over the smelters. And it drops these little, what they thought were probes, little, orbs down into the chimney.
Uh-huh.
And the whole group of miners are seeing this. People in Morenci, it's a mining town. There's a lot of UFO activity there. But this thing came so low over the copper smelting plant that all the people who were working there saw it. And stayed there for a pretty long time and moved off, and then off it went. And I was looking into this. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's do some digging on this. All these copper smelting plants, all these copper mines, open pit mines, every single one has been visited almost without exception. And people are seeing humanoids. There's one case involving what appears to be, you can see this on my YouTube channel. I did a UFOs over mines. One looks like a photograph of a humanoid. He didn't see it when he took the photograph because he was trying to photograph a UFO that was over there, and it's just a big bright light. But over there by the fence is this little tiny short humanoid. It's not super clear, but nobody should be standing there.
Yeah.
But over gold mines, over iron mines, diamond mines.
Are they mining the stuff themselves? No, they're just observing, or
they're studying, I think.
Yeah,
because I looked into that. There was one case I just covered in last week's YouTube video episode on my channel at a gypsum mine in Caledonia, Ontario, Canada, where the guy stepped out to relieve himself and saw two little UFOs, then realized one was right above the ground, right at the slag heap, the waste pile.
Yeah.
So and we see a number of cases of that where they're examining the waste, the slag, what we call a slag heap, because after you mine, we throw away some of this stuff. And I think they're looking to see, how we process or what we're taking or our technology levels. But definitely there's an interest there. There was one case at a gold mine in Northern California where the ETs left a pile of material on the road, which was clearly left by them and was studied in a laboratory setting. Jacques Vallée has this case.
I love him.
And they studied, and the guy said, well, your sand, because that's what they called it, is not sand. And it's got all these different materials, and they listed them all. I said it was very strange because these are all from different areas. These do not belong together. They were normal material, silica and various, I forget what they were. It's nothing that would, be a huge red flag. But it was a red flag because you can't find this stuff together. So I thought that was kind of put there as a calling card for the witnesses, because who are having really intense encounters at their private gold mine. The Chapins, that was their name, Chapin. You can look this up. It's a very cool case. Definitely there's this interest in mines, and it's amazing to me how many cases there are of UFOs landing, people seeing humanoids. There was one case where they're hovering over one of these copper mines, and the gas station attendant can see it. It's hovering over the mine. A guy pulls up, he sees it. There's humanoids visible. Cars are driving by. They slow down. They look. They take off.
Wow.
People get all frightened when they see something that is out of their worldview.
Oh,
I'd
bet.
stop. I'd run. I want to see it. Man.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you a question about misplacement. I was talking to Joe Montaldo, the owner of this network, and not the last conversation, the one before that. And he had told me a story about two sets of couples. They went to vacation together, and they were taken upon a craft. Long story short. And when they were put back, they were accidentally put back in the wrong hotel rooms. And this is documented. So like couple A went to couple B's hotel room and vice versa. Do you get cases like that where people are put back in the wrong spots?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not super common, but it's certainly not what I would call uncommon. People will be put back into the wrong beds. I had a case personally where a guy, he will not get in the car unless he's driving. And he's driving with his friend along the 5 freeway late at night, Central Valley in California. And they see this UFO, and he's like, Preston, this thing felt alive to me. It felt like this craft was alive. One of the first reports I have of that, because now we know, of course, they are.
Yeah.
and he had vague recollections of being pulled out. This beam of light came out and hit their car.
Wow.
And next thing they know, they're much farther ahead on the road. And he's no longer driving. His friend is driving. So
See,
is
that's
that yeah. Now my question is this intentional or is it not? I think probably it is. Maybe they're in a rush and it doesn't really matter to them, but they're on top of things. They know, not accidental. Yeah.
Dolly is just saying, yeah, for those listening, that it's not accidental. They were making a point to those people to remember. Remember what? You mean the incident? Like to remember that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. There were people who have been placed, more than a few miles away from where they were taken. And here's a really good example of this. People will be put back in their beds with their head facing the foot of the bed and their feet on the pillow. So you wake up and you're like,
imagine?
What just happened?
Right out. Yeah.
You might roll around in bed and tangle yourself up in the blankets, but you're not likely to.
No. You're not likely to flip yourself from top to bottom.
It's a really, really good way to give you just enough information to really make you think. And because they don't want to scare people. That's the last thing they want to do. But there are a few cases where they will drop people outside of their house. And I had that in Louisiana. The guy couldn't get in. Thankfully, he was a kid and he knew how to jimmy open the glass door. He was covered with mud. He had slipped and fell. He cleaned himself in the pool, which got all muddy, and then crept back in because he couldn't tell his parents. They were strict. Woke up the next morning, and everyone's looking at the pool like, how did the pool get so muddy? And he didn't say anything. But it was absolutely
Dolly telling a story when she was, I think, 5, that she was taken and placed back far away from her home, something like that.
Yeah, she said she was being a little bit kind of difficult with the ETs, giving an attitude, and they're like, all right, we're dropping you off.
Just not where you want, right?
Yeah, and not in her clothes that she had put on.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I mean, there's a number of cases of this, which I think is absolutely a calling card.
Yeah.
I was being honest. She's a riot.
She's being honest, right? She's being honest. She wasn't being a good girl. She wasn't being a good girl. Funny.
Yeah, ETs are people too, and they have a sense of humor, and I think that's something that
it sounds like it.
Yeah, Stan Romanek, his case is very controversial. I think he's legit, but he was put back in his home wearing a woman's nightie, I think. And he had gone to bed with a T-shirt that said, I got abducted and all I got was this stupid T-shirt. So someone...
Is that true?
He says it's true, and I like his case. I talked to him personally. I talked to his wife, and you can call him a liar if you want, but you're calling his whole family liars, and you are calling about 30 or 40 people liars if you do. I think he was framed, honestly, because he got into some real trouble. Because his case has got an enormous amount of evidence. He was healed. He went to the doctor. He's got photographs. He's got landing trace evidence, implant evidence. His case was almost designed to be one of those out there that has legit proof to it. And I think that's why they went after him. This is my humble opinion. But his case is very controversial. He was apparently caught throwing a pencil and then saying, I didn't do it. Which is
throwing a pencil?
Yeah.
At
across
who?
the room while he was being filmed. They were filming, and while the camera wasn't trained on him, he threw a pencil across the room. This is alleged, right?
Why would he do that?
Fake evidence. But I think he had a reason for that. I heard recently that that was also misreported on him in a framing way. But he ended up getting into trouble with the law, and probably not really worth getting into. But I honestly think he was framed. This happened to a number of researchers. You get too close, you step on toes, they will basically tarnish your reputation in a way that you can't, it's a permanent tarnishing of your.
Yeah, you got these men in black, right, that are out there doing nefarious stuff. So I don't doubt the government's involvement in making you look bad when they want you to look bad.
Yeah. Speaking of which, one of the chapters I have of alien gifts, where the people are given an artifact. Constance Clear is a Midwestern researcher who passed away sadly, but wrote a book called Reaching for Reality, I think it was, and had this case involving a gentleman, pseudonym Andrew, if I remember correctly, from Texas, who didn't really like his encounters, although he was healed of kidney stones. They removed a mole or a wart or something, but it was hard for him, and I understand that. But he had an on-board encounter, and the ET, her name was Nelda, something like that. I actually have it in the Not From Here, Volume 5, her case, because she gave her name. And she said, we really want to thank you for working with us. And he's like, I'm mad as hell about it. And they're like, why? Why would you be mad? And he's like, you ruined my life. It's been very scary for me and blah, blah, blah. She's like, well, we didn't intend to do that. That wasn't our goal. We have a gift for you. And it was this piece of metal sitting on, and they said, you will find this at some point. And this is our gift to you. And he woke up sometime after this experience, it wasn't immediately, and found it on his bed table or on a shelf in his bedroom. And it was just this little piece of galena, iron. Apparently, that's what it looked like, right? So he called up Constance Clear, didn't say anything, says, I'd like to see you. I have something to talk about with you. Scooped that up in some of his contact notes because he wrote down his experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I want to see you immediately. She's like, fine, come on over. He's driving over to her office when he gets run off the road by these guys, human-looking, black suits. I'm assuming they're government agents. And pulled him over and threatened him and took his notes, took the bar of metal. And he's like, I'm going to sue you. You can't do this. I'm an American. I have rights.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, call the police about you. And they're like, go ahead. Go ahead. You tell whoever you want. Don't talk about your experiences anymore, or, you will regret it. So they took the absolute alien artifact. And of the 20 cases I found where people have gotten alien artifacts, most of them had it stolen from them.
Terrible. Have you ever had any negative encounters since you've been a ufologist where, you felt followed or told to not release information, or just something trippy that kind of set you wrong? Like
a little bit. It's nothing that I would call absolute harassment. Well, actually, I'll back up on that because early on I did. Yeah.
Way. Tell us about that.
There was 3 or 4, maybe even 5 things that happened. One was really odd. I was, I lived in a condo in Canoga Park, and I would walk to the restaurant, which was like 2 doors down, Mission Burrito. And I was doing that, and this car comes screeching to a stop in the middle of the road and takes my picture. And my first instinct is to turn around and like, who's he taking a picture of? There's nothing to take a picture. I'm the only one there. I thought that was odd.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave me a creepy feeling. And there's another time I was at a convention, and there's this guy walking by, and he's got a suit. He's slick. His hair is slicked back. He's got the glasses. Yeah. He's putting on a show. If he's not FBI, he sure looks like it. He's very tall, and comes walking up to me and kind of lifts his glasses like, so, hey, what do you got cooking, in the cooker? What are you putting out? And I look at him, and I'm getting a vibe from him because,
yeah,
I can get a vibe. I got a little bit of ability.
Of course.
And he came off as CIA. He just did. And I just looked at him and I smiled and I said, everything I publish, I make available to all the public. So you can read about it when it's ready.
That was a good answer.
And another guy, same thing. This guy's sitting in the audience. He's looking CIA and attacks me. Literally, when I'm talking about UFOs over Topanga and cars being followed and a car was lifted up and so forth and landings and the whole deal. And he interrupts me and actually stands up and starts kind of shouting almost, saying this is just weather phenomena. You're not an objective researcher. You don't know what you're talking about. Weather can cause this. And I said, sit down. Weather does not, lift a car up in the sky. Weather does not take a person missing from their room. Weather, and I got a whole clapping from the audience because I'm not going to tolerate that. If you want to, talk to me, but don't interrupt.
Absolutely. That's rude.
The worst one.
Just rude.
There's two other things. I was in a condo that was a secure building, a locked building with a locked mailbox. And there was no internet. It was just coming out. So I was sending out manuscripts through snail mail. And when I say sending out manuscripts, 40, 50, I sent out UFOs over Topanga to 60 different publishers before someone took it, Llewellyn. And it did really well. But
they're so good, Llewellyn. Yeah.
They were not receptive. And so I'm sending, articles too. There was a lot of magazines. So I've got 100 pieces of mail at any given time, maybe 50, but a lot. And they kept coming back opened, Carol Ann.
That's crazy.
My mail was opened, ripped open. And finally, I worked with my sister and we'd go home for lunch because it was real close to work. I'm like, would you do me a favor and open my mailbox and tell me I'm not crazy? And tell me because I would get something pretty much every day. Returned, rejected usually. But she's like, okay. And she opened the mailbox and she pulled out this opened manuscript. She's like, wow, it's opened. I'm like, yeah, I'm having a problem. I'd be interviewing people and tick, 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 voices in the background, static. I was investigating the Topanga Canyon wave and this guy calls me up. I put out my phone number on billboards with a little picture of a UFO. Have you seen me? And this guy calls me up. He's like, are you Preston Dennett? I'm like, yeah. Are you the UFO researcher? Yeah. He said, well, I have a top secret clearance.
Yeah.
I worked in Vietnam doing satellite mapping. I'll never forget this. I think he did give his name. I did forget that, unfortunately. But he's going on. He went on for about 5 minutes. Like, I'm so great and I'm so smart and I've got such a clearance. I'm like, why are you calling me?
Yeah.
You need to know that what you're doing is dangerous.
What?
And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, investigating UFOs could get you hurt. And I'm like,
now that's
really?
A threat.
Yeah, that's how I kind of took it. I was actually flattered, honestly. I'm like, yeah, I must be pushing some buttons because I'm ready to die for this. I don't care. I know there's life after death. Come at me. I dare you. I will reincarnate and get your ass. That's kind of, I was very young, mind you. I was, my early to mid 20s at that point. And then he's like, well, you're just barking up the wrong tree. It's not what you think it is. I'm like, it's not. What is it? What is it? If he says, there's no pay dirt in it. That was his next response to, me saying, what is it? I'm like, what do you, and I'm thinking to myself, no pay dirt, then how is it dangerous? If I'm looking into something that there's nothing to it.
Point. Yeah.
And I was about to, sort of bring that up. I was in college. I had just taken techniques of persuasion, which is all these things that people do to try to convince you of something.
Sure. Absolutely.
And he was going down the list. I'm like, well, this is interesting. Tick, 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 tick. So I thought that I took that as a threat. I took that as
it sounded like one.
Yeah.
Did anything happen after that, or was that just it?
That was it. And that was the worst I've ever had, other than obviously, being followed. I was followed with Dolly. She's dealt with this. Contactees deal with this.
Oh, I'll bet.
And it was disconcerting to say the least.
Scary. Yeah.
They followed us to our Airbnb. I'm like, Dolly, I think we're being followed. We had gone to the UFO con in, Arizona, or in Laughlin, Nevada.
Yeah.
And we had an Airbnb in Arizona, which is right across the border at this little town. And we go off the freeway, and I'm like, well, gosh, that car is following us. Take a turn, car's still following us. I'm like, Dolly, this car is following us, I think. Thankfully, there were 5 more turns, right? Because it's a little side street. Followed us right up to our driveway. I pulled into the driveway. They blocked the driveway as we're walking in.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, oh my God. And Dolly's like, I deal with this every day. You've seen the pictures I've sent you.
Yeah.
They climbed on the roof of our house. I've had contactees who've had their...
What?
Yes. They climbed on the house, and we're going to do something nefarious, but thankfully her contact, Talata, said, step back, I'm taking action here.
Oh,
she EMP'd their car. So, yeah.
Wow.
These government folks, they're stooges. They're ruthless. And, God bless them. They're on the wrong side of history here. But what a miserable job. I'd much rather be doing what I'm doing, talking to people, getting the firsthand stories, seeing stuff, than spying on somebody. It's like, what kind of a worm are you? What is wrong with you? Get some morals.
I agree. Plus, there's so many people investigating and in this, they're ufologists, and they're trying to get the truth out. So you can't stop everybody you can't threaten everybody either. Like, I don't know how they think they could get away with doing that, but.
Well, they do. They've got an unlimited budget.
Yeah, I guess.
And they have a plan. They have an agenda. And they've got an army of people if they want. And people have died over this. Whole families rubbed out. Husbands and wives, military whistleblowers. The real whistleblowers you're not going to hear from, because they're going to be rubbed out unless they're to some extent towing the party line, or basically are threatened, like, you have to say this, you have to do what we're going to tell you to do, or that's it for you. But Leonard Stringfield, I love that man. He's passed on. He was the crash retrieval expert. Had a number of cases where whistleblowers came forth, talked to him, would never talk to him again, got threatened, or were actually killed.
Oh my God. What's his name again?
Leonard Stringfield. Yeah, a true hero to this field. I love those old style researchers. They were a lot more thorough. They were a lot more objective.
Yeah.
Jim and Carl Lorenzen, James McDonald, Leo Sprinkle, Jalen Hynek, Walter Webb, David Webb. They were brothers, 2 very prominent researchers.
Wow.
Love
Did you ever
guys.
come across a story either told to you privately, or one that you researched that you were leery to share with the public, where you were like, I don't know if I really should be releasing this information? Was there anything like that in your experience?
Well, somewhat. Certainly, I've interviewed people. I'm like, no, don't. This is not ringing true. I'm not going to release this. But I've interviewed people, and I'm pretty good at questioning people, because I let them talk, and they'll say something like, "Well, I really can't talk about this part. I don't want to. It's personal." I'm like, "Okay, well, why? What is it about it?" And we'll start circling around, and then they're like, "Well, okay, but off the record." And yes, there was one case I published in my book, such a good case, involving this lady who had just tremendous encounters with this gray, who she had a full-on conversation with. Had some stuff happen to her that she does not want made public. And I wish I could, because it's
Told you about it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you know what it was, and
100%.
wow, and you can't divulge it.
I cannot. And I cannot even say even remotely what it is. But it's deep. It's like, wow. Something that happened to her that I can't talk about. She requested I do not talk about it. She would not let me use her name anyway. And she was very
it for
gracious.
legit reasons, or was it personal? Like, was it for safety reasons, or she just didn't want that information
It
out
was a
there?
little bit of both.
A little bit of both, yeah.
Yeah, but I've talked to some whistleblowers who will tell me stuff, and like, you can't talk about this part. You know, Dolly Saffron, she has NDAs. I can't ask her about certain things. She cannot tell me.
NDAs with who?
Previous employers. You'll have to talk to her about it.
Oh, I never heard her talk about that.
Yeah, well, she's. She says there's a reason why. Yeah, you need to do some deep dives with Dolly on your show.
Come on, Dolly, give us the goods.
Because she's, every time I hear her on a show, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm putting together Symmetry 2. And we're going to be talking about crop circles, by the way, because she's got some info.
Oh, awesome.
And
love it.
Really cool stuff. Hi, Duchess.
Hey, Big Poochie.
Hi. Say hi to people. Say hello.
That dog's head is the size of my dog. Beautiful. She's beautiful. I don't know. We're going to have to get Dolly to spill the beans on some of this stuff.
She'll talk to the edge of it, but
yeah. I'm teasing.
And I absolutely have such compassion for people. Earl Grey, his mom apparently was in the whole military industrial complex, cataloging stuff in some underground military base. Told him, he recently passed away, God bless him, all this stuff when he was like 3 or 4 years old. And one day he's like, a kid or an adult, and says, Mom, what about all that stuff you told me? And she turned pale white. She's like, you remember that? Never talk about that. If you haven't interviewed him, Dan Harari, check him out. He's Dan got Harari. He's a publicist in Hollywood who's entered the UFO field. I can get you his contact info.
Have you had him on your show?
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Oh, wow. I'll have to go look at that.
His father was also involved in all of this. He and Dolly started talking up a storm because they both have, this in their family. Yeah. Dolly's father was very much.
Yeah, she talked about that. Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of these whistleblowers are sitting on stuff they will never be able to talk about. And it's heartbreaking because
it is.
we deserve to know.
You're right. It is heartbreaking. And it also angers me and a lot of everybody else. I mean, it's like I said. Yeah.
It's disappointing. It's heartbreaking. It's frustrating. It's anger producing. It's all of this. And this is what happens when people tell lies or withhold the truth.
Yeah.
It creates all kinds of distrust. So everything that's coming at the government is 100% deserved. I have very little pity for them.
Yeah.
I have some because I think there are people in government who are really trying to hard.
They are. That's true.
But suddenly you find yourself in the lion's den, and you can't. It's very hard to be moral and ethical when you're surrounded by wolves.
Oh gosh,
snakes.
That's so true, Preston.
And that's an insult to wolves and snakes.
Yeah, it is. I agree. It is an insult to wolves and snakes. I was talking to Joe just yesterday, and was it yesterday or the day before, and he had said that because he has a whole website, ICAR, and they do abductee analysis and so on and so forth. And he said that in his research, the people that get contacted and taken, whatever word you want to use to describe that, are mostly contactees. So in other words, because I had asked him, I said, why is it that a lot of us go outside and we please reveal yourself, we try everything, and nothing works. And he said, the only people that UFO will reveal themselves to are former contactees. Is that true in your research?
No,
I don't know
love
why
you.
he said
I
it,
love you,
but
Joe.
yeah,
But no one's ever going to agree on all things. But I can tell
right.
you that ETs are doing a very vigorous, carefully orchestrated publicity campaign to announce themselves to all humanity.
Yeah.
Really, there are a number of very widely viewed sightings. Oh, in fact, this latest book, volume 6 of or volume 5, is it? I'm losing track. It's volume 5,
Mm-hmm.
I think, of Not From Here, covers cases that are very widely viewed.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one in Farmington, New Mexico, on St. Patrick's Day in, 1950. Now, Farmington is a small town of some 3,000 people proper, but 6,000 outskirts.
Yeah.
Everybody saw this. They're not all contactees. This huge,
True.
50, 100
That's
craft
true.
came down and showed themselves. UFOs put on what's called a display. Frank Salisbury wrote the Utah UFO display because in the Wichita Basin of Utah, they were coming down in these waves of sightings. This is what UFO waves are. And if you look at these UFO waves, they're very interesting because it turns out that on the day of the Farmington display, californium, an artificial radioactive element, had just been invented and they were talking about it. If you look at the Topanga Canyon UFO wave,
Yeah.
the UN was meeting for an Earth Environmental Summit.
Oh, so there's like a correlation.
Yeah, there was a massive wave over an airbase in Hawaii on Oahu. That was when a whole bunch of nuclear stuff was going on.
I heard about that. I heard about
The
that.
French wave of 1954, CERN had just been formed.
Ugh.
Not
Obvious.
far away.
What about the Phoenix lights? Was there a so many people saw them, that craft? Was there anything happening at the time with that?
I'm a little bit on the other side of the fence with the Phoenix lights. Because I think what was going on, there was an enormous amount of activity at that time. And this was a false flag operation. There was this article in the MUFON Journal which stated, we have this technology to create holographic displays. I think that's what this was.
You think it's that good, the technology, that they could pull something off like that?
There was a bunch of reports of people saying they could see the stars through this thing.
Oh, well, that's not good.
And I always wondered about that. And for a long time, I thought this is a legit craft. But Dolly finally told me one day, it's like, you need to really take a deeper look in this, because if that craft is that large, it would knock down the power out of that whole city if it was that low. Because people were describing
heard that too, because the mass of it's so big, right, that it would be expected to do. That makes a lot of sense.
No, I want to be very careful here because people did see legit stuff. Dr. Lynn Kitai wrote a book about this. She's the go-to gal on the Phoenix Lights, and I adore her. I think that book is amazing. It's a required reading. Bill Hamilton also wrote a book on that case, and I dove deep into it because I wrote UFOs over Arizona. There's some legit stuff going on there, but night,
just not the Phoenix Lights. You think that was a hologram? Wow, false flag.
I think we need to consider this possibility. Dolly says flat up. I'm telling you, you really need to check that out because that's, what it was.
Wow.
So, and when she says something, I have to take it seriously because I was taken on board. I met Mama. She proved this is not a matter of belief for me. I had the absolute personal experience of truth, meeting her contacts, seeing the craft.
How long ago was that again? I know we talked about that. Did that happen to you? How long ago?
It was 2022. Best experience of my life. I mean, it's in the top 10, certainly.
Was that when they gave you the liquid to drink, or was that a separate incident? That was it, right?
That was it. Yep. So cool. I mean, I can't tell you what it felt like to be flying through space. I'm like, oh my God, I'm being taken and I'm going to remember it this time. Because, I had a missing time incident, which I finally unpacked to some degree.
Well,
And
that's
I've got a
good.
lot of memories of being on board, actually. But
Wow.
that one was amazing because I was full on, clicking to it. But yeah, there's a lot of these cases which we have to take a second look at.
Yeah,
'Cause
I agree.
one I would point to would be the Colares incident in Brazil, where these UFOs were shooting down beams of light and hurting people. And one of the major investigators to that case was killed when he started
Oh
to talk about how he
goodness.
thought this might not be ET, but government. I think that
It
was a
sounds
false
like
flag
government.
operation.
Yeah, it sounds like government.
Remember the face peelers of Peru?
Oh,
They came up
yeah. Yeah, that was a big
No,
one.
don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. And if you look at some of the details, like the lady said, well, they were talking Spanish, but it sounded like an American accent or something
I
along.
heard that. And I
So,
also heard they were on some type of device that was levitating them off the ground, some type of, and it didn't look like alien tech. It looked like a hoverboard kind of thing. Yeah, that
yeah,
sounded like fake news, that whole thing.
Michael Schratt, one of my favorite
Yeah.
researchers, kind of bowled me over when he's like, well, 85%, 95% of what people have been seeing over the years is not ET. I'm like, no. Let's go down. Because I was told early on 20%. I think it's gone steadily upwards. Now it's pretty much all everything.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
yeah, we have to be very careful. And I started
We have a
looking through all
question.
these cases. And yeah, some
Yeah.
are absolutely human.
Yeah, I agree. Duncell wants to know, Preston, were you wide awake like you are now when you met Dolly's ET and on board their craft?
Yep. Wide
Yeah,
awake.
Dolly said yes, he was.
Yeah, I absolutely remembered it. And I remembered it as it was happening. You have dreams, and then you remember, and you're like, oh, I woke up, I remember this dream.
Yeah.
No. I was actually dreaming when I woke up because I was being pulled. I'm like, what the heck? I'm being pulled through the wall. This is insane.
Oh, wow. So you felt yourself being pulled through the wall? Like
Yep.
physically, did you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like I felt any, it wasn't like bam, bam, the wall's all solid. I was pulled,
Yeah.
I saw it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then I'm whooshing up through space. And it was a very electric feeling. I'm like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, I've felt this before. I
This
know
was
what's
in
happening.
the day? Was it
This
at
was at
night
night.
or in the, yeah.
Well, early morning.
Mm.
It was very cool.
Where was Dolly when that was she home or?
She was in Florida, I think, or Georgia.
Oh, she wasn't even home.
No, she was sick.
I had
She,
COVID.
she had
Oh,
COVID.
geez. Wonderful.
But she was on board when I've been on board, only I didn't remember it.
Wow.
So
So you were there together even.
that's what she says. Yep. How infuriating is that? I'm
Yeah,
mad.
that's kind of trippy. Yeah, definitely. So you're working on Symmetry 2. What else you got cooking there, Preston?
I am working on a book about supernatural because I want to touch on that
you did
again.
say that. Yeah. That's
That's
awesome.
going to be a good
Can't wait-
one. You know,
Can't wait for that.
I'm working on a sequel to my own out-of-body experiences because I wrote one book from the beginning, 1986 thereabouts, to 2001. Well, it's 2026. I have 25 years of OBEs that are much better than the early ones.
Wow.
I've gotten good at it. It's amazing. It's so much fun. I really, really want to dive deeper into that because it's so much a part of being human.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
It's fun. The UFO subject is very cool, but this is us. This is something we can do. Anyone can do this. It is like walking into a video game, but it's real. It's a whole new world that anyone can do with almost I don't want to say a minimum of effort, but truly, it's just a matter of what I would call applied knowledge.
Preston, you have the best directions for that, instructions, I should say. And we've done at least 2 shows where we've talked about how to do that, in-depth shows. So I recommend anybody go check them out.
Yeah,
Because
email me too.
they've helped me greatly be able to do more and more of that myself. Oh, thank you. His name is Oliver, or Ollie for short. My little pooch.
Very cute.
Now you're going to be teaching classes. You guys are going to be teaching classes if you haven't started already, right?
Yeah, we've done a couple. We did one with you, or 2.
Yeah. Aside from that, I thought you and Dolly were going to start.
But yeah, we are. And I just want to shout out real quick. Email me, prestonufo@gmail.com, and I'll send you the OBE guide. It's my first name and the word UFO. It's 2 pages. It's very concise, almost too concise, because you really need to do the steps. That's the only thing that's stopping people from going OBE, is they're not doing the work. Fear, craziness, skepticism. But honestly, you have to do the work.
Totally agree with that. You mentioned one thing that always stood with me, that if you want to test whether or not you're having an experience or not, take your finger and try to put it through a table or a door. And I've had to do that once or twice. So that was so helpful.
Yeah, that will only work if you do it at least 3 times a day, every day.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you really have to ask that question: could I possibly be out of body right now? And then try that. Because that's the thing. It's so real on the other side. Most people never quite realize, oh my gosh, I'm out of body. But you will when that finger goes through the wall and you're like, oh my God.
So funny. So trippy. So aside from that, those things, well, I know you've got a lot of books lined up in your brain. When is Symmetry 2 due out? Do you have an expected ETA?
I am aiming for this summer. It's now #1 high priority.
Oh, nice.
And if I have to, do what I have to do, I am going to get it done.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem, Carol. On my YouTube channel, I'm it takes me about 40 hours to put out a darn video.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I need to either take a break from that and just buckle down and get it done. Which I might do. Just take, for the next 2 weeks, no episodes, sorry. If that's what I have to do, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to get it done. So I'm so excited about it.
Oh,
it's a good book. I'm reading it.
Amen.
I'm polishing it up as I write, because I've learned, do the best you can first time around. And I think it's going to be.
Well, book 1 was excellent, Symmetry, and I know that's not going to be the title, Symmetry 2, because we
have a special title.
Yeah, because you're going to have a special title. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I can't believe 2 hours almost flew by already. Of course, we'll have you back. There's so much still to talk about. So many questions left that I didn't get to answer you. So we're going to definitely be doing this again. Preston, thank you so very much. It's always a joy and a privilege to spend time with you.
I feel the same way, Caroline. It's always a lot of fun. And I thought this was an amazing show. So
it was. We learned a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear. Always a joy. Thank everyone in the chat. Oh, did you have any questions that you stored before we say goodbye? That I don't want to be rude and forget.
No, I didn't. It's so hard for me to pay attention to chat.
I was so focused on what you were saying. I didn't really. I tried to get to them. Let me just see. Oh, love you too, girl. Yeah, Dolly, of course. Oh, of course, not lovely comments. Thank you, Poetic Poems. You make my day. Sweetheart. Koo Thunder. Oh, hi, sweetie. Rewatch it. Definitely. Definitely rewatch. It was very, very informative. One of my favorites with you, Preston. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Aside aside from the astral, the OBE stuff. Love them. Those are like, and I really love the one we did on remote viewing. That was a kick butt, right? That was a good one. Are you teaching
I always
class?
have fun with you. Yeah.
Yeah, class.
Yeah, when me and Dolly and I come on together, it's like a party.
It is like a party. It absolutely friggin' is. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to bring some food next time.
All right.
All right, sweetie. I will talk to you soon. Take
All
care,
right.
Preston.
Thanks, Caroline. You too.
Bye-bye, dear. Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone in the chat. Again, I read your comments. I'm trying to like glance off. Sorry if we didn't get to all the questions, but you can always email Preston. He's so good about answering questions and just he's always good at being there. Thank you guys so much. You guys rock. And of course, we will see you next week. We have 3 shows a week and love it. Love every minute of it. And thank you so much to Preston and Dolly, because she definitely did help us answer some questions tonight. And again, if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to Preston. You can find him and his books at prestondennett.weebly.com. It's been running across the screen. Have a blessed and wonderful upcoming weekend to you all. Much love from the heart. Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.